iPhone 14, the most exciting phone Apple's ever released, or a massive disappointment? Yes, I have been following the hype of the iPhone 14, and while I think it's probably going to end up being one of the most successful iPhones that Apple has ever launched, there's also a good chance it may end up disappointing you with the sheer amount of hype that this phone has gathered. I mean, it's only February, and the sheer amount of videos that I and many other creators have made covering this phone is frankly off the charts compared to previous years, especially at this time frame. It is still only February. This phone is probably going to launch in September. We are a long ways away from the iPhone 14 actually being a product we can go out and buy. So if I'm so confident that the iPhone 14 is going to be a successful phone, why am I also saying it may end up being a disappointing phone? Well, that's what we're going to cover in today's video. So there are a few reasons why I think the iPhone 14 could end up being a letdown, and I think the first part of that comes down to the design. Now, yes, I think the current design rumors look fine with the removal of the notch and the addition of the hole punch plus the pill shape, but that's not the part where I think you might be disappointed. And even though it may not be the simplified hole punch design that was rumored, I think most people acknowledge that the removal of the notch for this new design is by default going to end up better because it just gives you more screen real estate, and that's what people are always saying. They want the notch removed so they can have even more screen. So any sort of bezel or barrier removal at the top is gonna add up to be more screen, even though I really don't know what people are going to be doing with those extra pixels. Hopefully it means like a battery percentage bar on the top. I know that's like a big hang up for people, so maybe Apple could add that back. But other than that, it just probably means more status symbols, and I don't care about that. Now you're probably thinking that sounds great. Why am I gonna be disappointed by that? Well, the reason why you might be disappointed with this design change is simply because you won't be getting it. Now I know what you're saying. Greg, are you saying that Apple won't be changing the design for the iPhone 14 this year? Yeah, kind of. Because all of the rumors for this new design are for the iPhone 14 Pro and the iPhone 14 Pro Max. And while those are certainly popular phones that have the potential to sell more units this year thanks to that new design, you need to realize that if you were in the market for a regular iPhone 14 or the rumored iPhone 14 Max, the current rumors say that this is actually going to keep the same frontal design of the iPhone 13 and retain the notch. So even though, if you've been seeing all of those amazing renders floating around, that this design change is currently only slated for the higher priced Pro models. Speaking of price, it's another area to carry some disappointment for the iPhone 14 and 14 Max. So while I've said in my videos that a best case scenario for the iPhone 14 lineup would be that the 6.1 inch size iPhone replacing the Mini in the lineup would still retain the Mini's price point at $699, there is also the possibility that due to manufacturing issues or inflation, that it is just as easy that the iPhone prices could be trending upwards this year with the addition of a new, bigger sized iPhone 14 Max model. And while I want to be hopeful for an aggressive Apple this year with a 6.1 inch iPhone 14 at a $699 starting price, that would be absolutely great. It's also likely that with Apple removing the 13 mini from the lineup, that the starting prices of the iPhone is going to increase this year and be the highest starting price for an iPhone since the iPhone XR, which retailed for $750 when it came out. And this iPhone 14 could start at $799, while the additional option in the lineup, the iPhone 14 Max, could be even more expensive, starting in at $899, just $100 away from a $1,000 starting price. And that would actually be a reverse in the trend in recent years from Apple, where we have seen the base iPhone model actually go lower in costs and increase on features. And it's another reason why the 14 may end up being Apple's most expensive iPhone lineup in years, and that could lead to a lot of disappointment there. Also, it may be missing certain features you were expecting. Like last year, it was widely reported that the iPhone 14 would bring back the Touch ID fingerprint scanner as an additional unlocking option. Well, now most of those rumors are saying that Apple is not planning on adding underscreen Touch ID or Touch ID to the power button, and in fact, they are doubling down on Face ID, as evident in the recent iOS 15.4 beta, where you can now add additional Face ID unlocking options like the ability to use Face ID while wearing a mask, or even registering different types of glasses. Personally, with all of these options for Face ID, including Apple Watch unlocking, I kind of feel like Touch ID isn't necessary for the iPhone anymore. But still, there were a lot of people who preferred Touch ID, and they were excited for its return, and it doesn't look like it's returning this year. Now, the normal iPhone 14 may also not be getting some of the features of the Pro model, even ones that it received last year. So one of the biggest upgrades to the iPhone 13 Pro was the addition of an LTPO 120Hz ProMotion display, which allowed the iPhone to have a variable refresh rate from 10Hz to 120Hz. So at the max 120Hz, this resulted in smoother scrolling, animations, and smoother gameplay. But it also let the iPhone 13 Pro ramp down the refresh rate when not interacting with the display, or when looking at static content, or when watching lower frame rate video, to make the display more efficient with its battery consumption, resulting in longer battery life on the Pro models. The Pro models this year had fantastic battery life, and one of the reasons was thanks to the efficiency of Apple's LTPO display. Well, this display technology may still be exclusive to the Pro model iPhones this year, and it could be another reason why the regular iPhone 14 may not be an exciting upgrade compared to the Pro model, where it may have a majority of the premium features. Speaking of other features, well, the iPhone 14, even the Pro model, isn't really rumored to be getting too many of them. Most of the rumors for the iPhone 14 are centered around that new design, which again is only exclusive to the Pro models, with the biggest upgrade coming to the 14 this year being in the camera department. But besides the camera improvements, the only real rumored features we have right now are the new design. I really think that's about it. And that camera, while I think it could be one of the biggest upgrades to the iPhone camera in years, with Apple moving up the megapixel count from 12 megapixels to 48 megapixels, there's also a chance that this difference in megapixel count may not add up to much. Because if you thought that a 48 megapixel iPhone would give you full megapixel readout and give you the ability to have a, full size 48 megapixel image so you could zoom up and digitally crop the photos with all the detail retained, well, you may end up being very disappointed there. Because even though the sensor is technically capable of taking a 48 megapixel readout when it takes the picture, these phones usually use a process called pixel binning that basically takes 4 adjacent pixels next to each other and merges them into a single pixel. So when you're taking those 48 megapixel pictures, by the time the phone is done processing those photos, you're pretty much left with the same 12 megapixel resolution that you would have got on last year's iPhone 13. Now, obviously, Apple's computational photography is usually pretty good, so I think they can do a lot just with that sensor readout, even if it's still technically a 12 megapixel photo, but hey, there's always room for disappointment. And one area where I think I'm actually gonna be pretty disappointed is a rumor where Apple may actually remove another thing from the iPhone this year. And that thing may sound simple at first. It's the SIM card tray slot, because Apple is rumored to be switching to eSIM for the iPhone 14, and the removal of a physical SIM card could actually end up being a pretty big deal for people who want to switch between carriers very easily, because right now all you have to do is basically pop out the SIM card and plop another one in if your phone is unlocked. And the removal of this feature could be a big deal for people who want to easily switch between carriers or swapping SIMs when traveling internationally. And for me, it's personally going to be a huge pain if this turns out to be true, because I kind of switch my phones a lot. I review a couple iPhones every year, sometimes some Android phones, and if I gotta pop my SIM, well, I can't pop my SIM. If I gotta call AT&T up, if I gotta talk to anyone to switch phones, that's gonna be a problem, because I'm of a different generation, and I do not like to talk on the phone with people. I don't want to talk to anyone on the phone. Do not make me talk on the phone. Apple, please. I can't handle the anxiety of talking to someone on the phone to switch my SIM card. I'm gonna end up being stuck on one phone for the rest of my life at this point. All right, well, hopefully it's not that disappointing, because I think Apple could make it a lot easier to switch between eSIMs, and if Apple gets control away from the carriers and just gives us a very simple way to maybe swap the SIM card digitally, like maybe some sort of like AirDrop feature when you have an iPhone next to it, that'll be fine. That'll be fine. Maybe I shouldn't stress so much about this. All right, I don't want to end this video on a bummer, so I won't. I am personally excited for the iPhone 14, and I do think it's an exciting phone. But I also do want to be cautious with my optimism here, and I want to express that to you because there are valid reasons why the iPhone 14 could end up being disappointing. But hey, it's only February, and there's still plenty of time left in the iPhone 14 rumor cycle where we may learn about new features and changes that could make this phone even more exciting than what it appears to be right now. So if you like this video, be sure to give me a like. If you want to see if this video turns out to be right or wrong when this phone launches in September, well, make sure you're subscribed for bragging rights, and also let me know in the comments below, are you excited for the iPhone 14 or do you think it's going to be a letdown? And as always, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all in the next video. Take care, everyone.